Hello and welcome to my podcast, The Digital Humanist. This is Dominic, talking about technology, especially AI in today's day and age, and how it's impacting our life. Today with me, I have a blast from the past, somebody who has many reasons to give up on me, but has never done so. We lost touch for many years, but I've known him when I was just starting my career off in the Middle East. This is Azhar Ziaur Rahman, who was much my senior, but was very kind to put up and tolerate me for most of the times when I bugged him with all my curiosities. It's really good at the moment because Azhar has evolved, and being just a tech guy, he has now moved on to doing a lot of work in AI. And if I may say, he's actually doing something in AI that I'm not really convinced about, but I want Azhar to prove me wrong. I think it's going to be a great conversation. He's the author of a new book called AI Formatics, or Formation, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to let him talk about it. And he talks about ethics when it comes to AI. Now, I personally think we as human race have done a really bad job on ethics. And ethics are also different based on which religion, which region, which culture you come from. So I want to talk about ethics in AI. So Azhar, really good seeing you, and welcome to the podcast.
My pleasure, Dominic, in discovering you after so many years. I'll come over to Singapore one day and meet you physically as well.
I really, really hope so. So Azhar, tell our audience a little bit about what you've been working on in the past couple of years. I know you've spent a whole lifetime in technology, but what have you been doing in the last couple of years?
Well, I change my career path every 3 years. So I came into governance about 15 years ago. And then from corporate governance, I moved into technology governance. And I invented the term technology governance, not IT governance, but technology governance. And then I wrote my first book on technology governance, I think 8 years ago. And I laid down the foundations of the concept of technology governance. Then I became a consultant on different aspects of governance, which includes IT governance, technology governance, governance of ethics, governance of data, and all these things. So I decided to write a book on governance of technologies last year. And that was the first book which covered the governance of technologies in the fourth industrial revolution and society 5.0. I can show you the book. This is the book. It's available on Amazon. It includes two fundamental concepts. One is a framework that covers all these standards and processes and systems that an organization should have to run. And it also includes a methodology, a very detailed methodology for transformation using those systems. So this is my book last year, and it is being taught in some universities worldwide because it is the only book which is very thorough. It holds your hand and takes you through the process of transformation. So that was last year. Then I discovered that last year also in March, there was this from the UN, the AIEthics, what was it called? Anyway, so and then immediately after that, we had the AI Act from the European Union. So the ethics thing started to catch on. But my question was, can ethics be measured? So to satisfy that question, to answer that question, what I did was I started writing a book, and the result was this book of mine, which is the first ever book on the assessment of AI ethics, and this one is also available on Amazon. So this is about a 900-page book. So that's what I've been doing. So I've been helping organizations, mostly in the Middle East, transform themselves and improve their working. So that's what I've been doing in the last 10 years or so.
Wow. So, just in my humble mind, I think that there is a clear difference between governance and ethics, whether it's technology or not. And I'm a huge advocate for governance when it comes in technology or whatever else. But ethics, I have a huge thing about it. What triggered you really to say, you know what, I think the world needs to have some ethics on AI? What was the triggering point for you?
Okay, when we talk of governance is the responsibility of the board of directors of the organization.
Yeah.
Right? And they were responsible mainly for the governance of finance, because the head of finance is always sitting with the CEO. And secondly, the governance of the human resources. So these were the two main issues. But then, during the last 20 years or so, the next issue came up was information. And that became the most valuable asset of an organization, and that had to be governed. But when you do have a person responsible for governing finance, that's the CFO, and you have a person responsible for governing the HR, which is the CHRO, there is nobody responsible for governing the information assets of the organization. That was one triggering point. The second triggering point was that why is there nobody responsible for assuring ethics in the organization? So that should also be a part of governance. So in my book last year, I had a chapter on the governance of ethics. I don't know if written on that, but probably I was one of the first who wrote on the topic of governance of ethics. So that triggered me to dive deeper into the concept of governance of ethics. And then the first question was that to govern something, you need to measure it. How do you measure ethics? And that's what I worked on and wrote this book.
Okay, so Azhar, how do you measure ethics?
Very difficult question. First of all, there's something called COVID 2019. People who know IT, it's a framework for governing IT, right? That gave me the idea. Because using COVID, we can measure the maturity of the different AI systems and processes in the organization. So I use the same concept. That I said that we should define in great detail activities which need to be measured so that we can determine the maturity of AI ethics for that organization. So to reach the level of ethics, I had to define 10 elements of AI ethics. And those elements of AI ethics I derived from the UN resolution, number one. Number two, the European Union Act, and then all the laws from different countries around the world and different states and provinces of countries who have their own AI ethics or AI laws. So I read all of them and I came up with 10 elements of AI ethics. And I discussed those with experts, and they said they agreed that these cover everything. But you cannot measure the maturity on only 10 aspects. So I had to break them down into what I call factors of AI ethics. So I came up with 150 factors of AI ethics. But again, those 150 is not a very good number. It's not, you cannot drill deep down into. So then I had activities. So at the top level were 10 elements, then 150 factors, and then 150 factors were broken down into about 2,000 activities of AI ethics. Now we have the right granularity at which we can measure the maturity of AI ethics in an organization. Now, these three levels are standard for any organization, but every organization is different. So to do that, you can have KPIs against each of those 2,000 activities, and those KPIs are typical to or specialized for that organization. So that's how you configure my framework for any organization anywhere in the world, however small or however big it is. So this is how you measure the ethics against the activities and the KPIs they're doing.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll ask you this to answer me later on, to give me an example of one of the 10 ethics. But before we go to that, I want to ask you a question. This is the digital humanist. So I completely vouch for technology, completely vouch for your experience in that, and for many other people that I've been speaking to. But when it comes to ethics for AI, are we talking about teaching machines to be moral, or about constraining their behavior to match our moral expectations? I mean, what is it?
It is how we humans conceive machines, how we humans design machines, how we humans use and not use those machines, and how we humans allow others to use or not use those machines. That's how it is. It's not about machines, it's the humans who have to be controlled and who have to be ethicized, so to say.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
It does make sense, but I'm not convinced about the ethics for AI because two things. One is I don't think that we are the right people to do it. I mean, it's almost an arrogance on our part, thinking that we humans are the ones who have the position to put ethics on AI. But and I'll tell you why, Azhar, because we as humans, we struggle with consistency in ethics, okay, because it's based across cultures, legal systems, generations. How do we decide whose ethics are right for AI?
Okay, very good question. To handle this issue, it's a very serious issue. I defined 10 levels or 10 lines of ethics.
Give me an example of one of the 10.
Okay, I'll give you the 10 lines of ethics. What are those 10 lines? 5 of those 10 lines belong to the organization, and the other 5 belong to the society. So if we start at the bottom of the organization, we've got something called the ownership level, which is somebody working on the factory floor, somebody working on the office floor, and he has to observe ethics at his level. Right? That's the lowest level at which ethics has to be observed. The next level is his supervisor, the management. So they have to ensure that they are being ethical and the people under them are being ethical. And the third level is the audit of the organization. The audit have to do audits and ensure that there are processes that control the practice of ethics by the managers and by the workers. That's the third level. The fourth level is the executive management. They have to ensure that they conduct or help conduct the right audits and help ensure and design and implement the right processes that ensure the observance of ethics. And the top level, the fifth level in the organization is the governance, the board. They have to ensure that everything in the board is done ethically. So these are the 5 levels within the organization. Now we come outside the organization. So the first level outside the organization is the professional and industrial bodies. Suppose you're in an oil company. There are professional bodies and standards for the oil industry. Suppose you're in the automobile industry. Suppose you're in the tourism industry. So that industry has got its own ethics. So those have to be observed. Then coming a little above that, the state controls. Controls defined by the government of the province or the state or the federal government. So that's the next level. The next level after that is the international controls, like the controls coming from international groups of countries, like the European Union, right? And then above that are controls coming from organizations like the UN. That's the fourth level. And the fifth level is what I call the virtue-based considerations, which includes beliefs, which includes your own internal beliefs, and which includes your religious beliefs. So these are the 10 levels at which ethics needs to be defined and observed at these 10 levels.
Yeah, but
does that answer your question?
Kind of. But, I mean, you talked about the last bit when you say religious. I mean, I put religion and culture into the same thing. that's different from one human to another. It's different. They might be similar in regions, but you cannot expect, for example, I know that you're a devout Muslim, but you cannot expect your ethics, as sincere as they are, which have been influenced in some way by Islam, you cannot expect that somebody who's a Christian or a Hindu or a Buddhist to comply with those ethics. This is where I struggle to see the wisdom in having ethics for AI.
Right. Very relevant. The book that I've written, this book on the measurement of AI ethics, the objective of that is to have a certification regime in which you certify a certain AI application or an organization on the level of maturity of its AI ethics. You will not come up with one number that will say the level is 5 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0, whatever. You will come up with numbers for each activity or each factor of AI ethics, and then when you get the certification of maturity, it will state that what was considered in assessing the maturity level and what was not considered. So that covers. So suppose you go to Norway, or suppose you go to Japan, very different standards will be used to assess the ethics, and what standards were used will be mentioned in the certification of that organization. So you cannot have you cannot have one standard across the world. The standard will have to be relevant to who you are assessing, and when you get the certificate, it will be written that how was this assessed.
Yeah, but that goes totally against the concept of globalization then, because you know what?
Yes.
I might be a great certified, as you call it, an AI ethics person who's, done ethical AI based out of India, for example. And then you're saying that on what you're saying, that certification is irrelevant if I go to Tokyo, if I go to...
Right, exactly. Because I, as a customer, I'm looking for a bank that has got a certain level of ethics based on a certain set of standards, and those standards are relevant to me. So I'll go only to that bank which satisfies my level of ethics. You're right. You cannot have something across the world. It will have to be relevant to your culture, your religion, your society, your environment, your technology, your line of business. You're right.
Okay. I don't agree with you on that, but moving on, I personally think that we can govern AI, but ethics, that's subjective. As in my humble opinion, you can prove me wrong. Should we be aiming to enforce governance instead of a philosophical framework that we call ethics, for example? How could we do this?
I totally agree with you. It is very subjective. You have to look at it from the eyes or from the lens of the customer. The customer believes in ethics in a certain way, and your organization has to satisfy the ethics levels of that customer. You're not targeting another customer, you're targeting this customer, and he wants this level of ethics. So you have to satisfy him. A bank in Japan will have a different level of or different definition of ethics, and they've got a different set of customers who have different standards for ethics. They'll satisfy their customers. So that's how it is. You cannot have a global standard for ethics.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, but that worries me because they're moving away from globalization in that case. So, for example, if I have an application developed that's working perfectly well in Europe, that doesn't mean that I can roll that out in Tokyo or in Indonesia or Malaysia. That means that I have different versions of an application. But
exactly.
Okay, I've
got a case in point. Which you'll agree with. Look at Google. When you look at the map of India and Pakistan on Google, it appears different depending on where you are. If you look at the map in India, Kashmir is shown as a part of India. If you look at the same map in Pakistan, Kashmir looks like a part of Pakistan. So exactly, and that is ethics, that is culture. So yes, you're right. The same application will appear different to different users in different parts of in different cultures. Yes, that's right. Okay. That's how it will have to be treated.
Okay. I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm not convinced. Let's move on. In your view, where does the boundaries between governance and regulations and ethics in AI development go from here? I mean, how does it all come together? Are they all separate, or are they inevitably one and the same?
No, governance covers everything. Then under governance are different aspects of governance, which includes, for example, corporate governance. It includes governance of ethics. It includes governance of technology. It includes governance of data. It includes governance of human resources. It includes governance of financial resources. So these are all. It includes governance of compliance, governance of regulation. So governance is one big umbrella under which you've got these slices, which have to be handled with synergy. That's how it is. That's how I look at it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you an interesting question before we get some other stuff now. Okay. In your humble opinion, tell me something. Could a machine, and not right now, maybe in the future, could a machine ever be ethical? Okay. And I mean, in a way, a human being is or isn't. Okay. Or will it always just be mimicking the moral code written by human beings?
Right. See, a machine has got two. A machine works on two inputs. One is the algorithm that it has been fed with, and the other one is the data that it uses to make decisions. The level of ethics of a machine will be only as good or as bad as the algorithm and the data. The typical case in point is an autonomous vehicle, an autonomous car, which has to decide if it should kill an old woman or kill the young child, right? So it'll make a decision based on the algorithm it has. If it is not being taught any ethical aspects, it will just decide on its own safety and on the safety of its passengers. So it depends on what kind of ethics has been taught to the machine. But the machine itself cannot be ethical. It will just take a decision based on what it has been taught.
Yeah, that's now. But with machine learning and so forth, we're talking about machines being able to think for themselves, decide for themselves. How is that going to play?
Again, the machine has to be taught how to learn and what to learn and what not to learn.
Okay, yes or no?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, if it is taught to learn things that relate to its own safety, but not to the safety of others, then it will decide accordingly. So, there will always be a human element in the learning of the machine. That's what I think.
Okay. Not a question I plan to ask you, but that just reminded me of something now. And there's an influx of social media. It has been for the past decade and a half, 2 decades. Okay. I worry that this language of ethics can sometimes be used to avoid legal accountability. And what I mean by that is, let me explain. There are many of these tech leaders we can already see this. Many of these tech leaders are saying that they're being ethical while still doing harm to society. What's your take on that?
Yes, you're right.
So in that case, where's the ethics?
The ethics is only limited to how you define the ethics.
Okay.
If you don't define the ethics to cover certain aspects, those will not be considered ethics.
I guess you're right, but I think we as mankind or humankind do a really bad job at following ethics. I mean, we struggle even following governance and laws and cultural beliefs, and so I really don't see how this is going to work. But anyway, in your book, do you propose a future where AI makes ethical decisions? What happens when we come to that stage? I just touched upon that earlier on. How do you propose? How do we address that when AI starts proposing its own ethics in the future? It becomes independent. Okay, it starts taking in things that we've given it separately, putting them together, thanks to algorithms, so thinking of machine learning, call it whatever you want. But are we at risk of the machine actually one day coming up with its own ethics, which might be completely foreign to us as humans?
This is covered by two of the elements of AIEthics that I have. One ensures that every decision ultimately is taken by a human. The machine should not be allowed to take the final decision. That's one thing. And the second thing is that the transparency. Whatever the machine does should be transparent. How that is, that's a different question. So if you ensure these two factors of AIEthics, number one, that the human has the final word, and number two, that there has to be transparency, then those things can be managed to some extent. Because you can always, you can always pull the plug. The machine runs on electricity. You can just pull the plug always. The machine will not kick you. It's not stop you from pulling the plug.
Yeah, we can pull the plug today, but I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But having said that, and as I'm exposing myself here as being the pessimist when it comes to this matter, okay? I don't know whether it's more dangerous, okay, to have a world wherein AI has got no ethics at all, or AI is trained on the flawed ethics of the human race. What's your take on it?
Perfect ethics has never been possible. It will never be possible with AI as well.
But you've just written a book on it. You've written a 900-page book on AI ethics. So,
right. So that's why what I'm doing in my book is giving a way of measuring the maturity of ethics, because ethics cannot always be perfect. So therefore, I've given a scale of 0 to 5, so that you can say that in different aspects of AI ethics, what is the score? How good or how bad are you? So that covers this issue of, can AI ethics be practiced, or can it be done? It can be done or it cannot be done, and we know to what level it is being done. That's the whole purpose of my book.
Okay. Again, the pessimist in me, okay, let me flip this around a bit now. What would you say to someone like me, okay, who believes that humans should not perhaps be the right people to set up ethics for AI or machine learning? And please substantiate your response either way. I think I know what you're going to say, but please, I want to hear you saying it.
See, even in the Stone Age, there was an issue of ethics, that you use the stone to kill a bird or kill an animal or kill the fellow human. So the issue has not changed. It has just become more sophisticated. So because of the problem of ethics, should mankind have not used the stone or the axe?
No, I'm not saying that, Azhar. I'm not saying that. But you know what? I mean, you've written a 900-page book, and I'm sure it's, knowing you, is substantiated, is honest, but it's 900 pages on something called AI ethics. And that's where the question's coming from. That's why I put the question to you. I mean, are we the right people to be setting this for machines and AI?
We have to try our best to have some method in the madness, so to say, and then measure how much method is there in the madness, because we cannot stop AI from being proliferated. So since AI is there, it will be there much more. So why not try to control it? Why not try to measure it? Why not try to tame it? That's the whole objective.
Fair enough. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I consider myself very fortunate, like you and many other people, to be born in this era where we've seen the evolution of technology, whether it's the iPhone or getting the whole internet in your hand, whatever it may be. Okay. And I am using AI for my creative work as well. And like something that I was trying to do for about a year and a half, not very long, on online tools and AI, and I was struggling to get it the way I wanted. 10 days ago, I used Google Flow. It's just changed the game. Something that I struggled for about a year and a half, Google Flow let me do it in minutes. Because I had the prompt, I just took the prompt, I put it into Flow and into Gemini, and voila, it was exactly what I wanted and beyond. Okay, so I'm a huge advocate for AI, but at the same time, I get to hear about machines learning and taking over and so forth. So, being the author of a book on AI ethics, let me ask you a question. What do you think society should consider when it comes to using, deploying, and rolling out AI in terms of ethics, say over the next 10 years? How is this landscape going to evolve?
Okay, that brings you to my next book, which should be out late this month, and that is about the process or the methodology of adopting AI. So I've got a 16-step methodology for it, in which you assess that in what aspects. First, you assess that in what processes can AI be adopted, and then you may come up with, let's say, 3,000. That's my favorite number. You may have about 3,000 processes in which you can use AI. Then you have to see that out of those 3,000 processes, which ones are commercially feasible for using AI. Then you come up with a smaller number, and then you see that out of those, let's say 2,100, how many processes are morally feasible for adopting AI. So you may come up with ultimately, let's say, 100 processes, and you implement those 100. After a year, the technology becomes better, and you add 50 more to it. So this is what I'm doing in my next book. That how do you adopt AI morally and ethically and logically and economically? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And no, it doesn't. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm still in this whole dilemma. You know me well enough as I'm just a warrior. Let's talk about a human side of AI. Now, AI is going to change the game, and is it going to put an end to wars, or is it going to fuel the hatred among nations even further? And two questions. One is a war, and second thing, how is mankind going to benefit from this thing called AI? Just in your humble opinion.
I think it will change the nature of war from killing humans to making humans suffer.
Oh, okay. How?
You get the point? So you're not killing a person, but you're making him suffer. You are destroying his data. You are stopping his heart-lung machine. You are affecting his pacemaker, right? So that will be the new face of war, very different. You will erase his bank balance. So probably because of AI, the nature of war will change, the suffering will increase, but the bloodshed probably will, the direct bloodshed will probably decrease.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
I hadn't thought about it, but now that you mention it, I'm thinking, we all know it in the back of our mind. Then I just heard you saying it, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's possible as well. And then another thing is that, and you touched upon it, how will AI benefit mankind or humankind, whether it's in healthcare or whatever, the healthcare, how will we as a human race benefit from this thing called AI?
Okay, in my new book, the first chapter is titled The Speed of Wisdom. Speed of wisdom is a brand new concept. So AI will enhance the speed of wisdom. The speed of wisdom means that if you look at the ladder, you've got data, then you've got information, then you've got knowledge, then you've got wisdom, and then you've got collective wisdom, right? So in transiting from the data to collective wisdom, it has taken time, it takes years. But AI will speed up the speed of wisdom, so you'll be able to make decisions based on bigger sets of data much more faster, and that will affect the quality of life in every field. The decisions will be much faster at speeds that humans cannot take decisions at. The decisions will maybe much more thorough, and initially the decisions may be much more wrong, but then as AI progresses, the wrong part will decrease and the right part will increase.
Interesting. Azhar, it's been amazing talking to you about this. At the end of this wonderful podcast, I'm still not convinced about whether, maybe it's just me. Can you imagine how messed up it's going to be if somebody makes a mistake and says, Tom, you said the ethics for AI. Can you imagine that? It'd be like a disaster. And maybe that's you're agreeing with me. Thank you, Azhar. But that's how I see it. But you know what? I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for AI. I have a lot of hope for technology, and I see the wonderful things it's done for the world. Unfortunately, it's also been a lot of bad things it's done for the world, but I hope that AI is going to do more good than bad for the world. I hope children in Pakistan and in India and in other emerging countries will be able to get access to education in a language that they can understand. I wish that people in emerging countries will get access to lawyers and doctors and philosophy gurus and so forth in lands which they haven't even heard of before in a language of their own. So I just hope that it's going to make a world a better place, I hope.
Let's hope so.
I hope so too. And, I'm going to end with something. Maybe you don't have to answer this, but in my little mind, I always wonder, what would someone like John Lennon or Charlie Chaplin or Nelson Mandela do if they were still alive in today's age and they had this tool called AI? Would they still be those innovative leaders thinking about humanity and mankind, or would it be more about using technology to, do music, films, activism, whatever you want to call it? I don't know. I think about it. What's your thought on that?
I think it's a difficult question to answer. Probably they will change their thinking, they'll change their track in some way. That's all I can think of at the moment.
Azhar, it's been great talking to you, and I had told myself I should buy your book before this podcast and read it, but obviously I haven't even got around to buying the book. But I promise to do it, and hopefully be in touch with you and argue with you even more about some of the things that you have written in your book once I've read it.
Sure. Pleasure, my pleasure. It's been nice talking to you. Let's meet again someday.